We all want to become better versions of ourselves, but change is hard. The ancient Greek philosophy of Stoicism offers practical lessons that can help reinvent ourselves mentally and emotionally. In this video, we'll explore 13 powerful Stoic lessons and exercises that you can incorporate to facilitate meaningful personal progress. You'll learn Stoic techniques to train perception, action, and will, helping you tackle obstacles, reduce anxiety and negative emotions, increase mental fortitude and self-control. Thank you all for watching, and before we start, make sure you watch throughout the whole video in order to fully absorb this ancient Stoic knowledge. Number 1. Examine your impressions and perceptions of things. Ask yourself questions like, is my gut reaction to this situation or person colored by emotions like anger, insecurity, or anxiety rather than facts? Am I projecting fixed assumptions that may require more patience and curiosity to understand alternative perspectives? Are there multiple valid interpretations beyond my initial impression? This process of slowing down and scrutinizing your perceptions rather than unconsciously reacting shapes wiser responses. And over time, emotional resilience and self-mastery strengthen. You liberate yourself from knee-jerk reactions and develop more nuance in relating to people or circumstances that previously may have triggered you. Regularly filtering your impressions through deeper reflection provides key raw material to reinvent your very sense of identity. By becoming conscious of ingrained patterns of thinking, you create space to integrate new ways of seeing yourself, others, and the world. What you see in any situation often creates your reality and dictates your responses. Self-examination allows you to catch limiting or even false impressions as they arise before solidifying into rigid beliefs, and gradually shape your identity into one more expansive, thoughtful, and conscious of life's inherent complexity. Number 2. Recognize the temporariness of all things. The Stoics fundamentally saw impermanence in all external things, whether relationships, prestigious roles, or material goods. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that cherished possessions make no guarantees to remain under our control indefinitely, and even the highest earthly status rarely endures till one's dying breath. Seeing this truth clearly provides freedom to loosen attachment to transient things we mistakenly seek our worth or security from, rather than clinging desperately when they eventually slip away or become threatened beyond our control. By consciously realizing the fleetingness of roles, reputation, and items that fail to define your innermost essence, you regain power. Power to let go, to embrace change as inevitable, power to channel energy into building virtues and wisdom instead that none can steal. This perspective allows tremendous mental spaciousness for reinvention when the time arrives. Facing a career setback, relationship transition, or losing prized possessions undoubtedly brings grief, but remembering that change was guaranteed from the outset helps to accept it with grace when it comes knocking. Rather than your sense of who you are crumbling because building blocks like relationships, reputation, or resources shifted without your approval, you stay grounded. Embodying this central Stoic idea lessens overly identifying with temporary blessings that surround you, and keeps your axis aligned internally, even amid external tumult. When any facet of identity built on such impermanent foundations cracks, there exists a chance for filling the space with conscious intent. Ask instead, who do I wish to become as I emerge from this transition now confronting me? Then set focused intentions to sculpt your best self. Number 3. Do your best and then accept what happens. Marcus Aurelius guided adherents to simply give their all in any endeavor out of discipline, enjoyment, and service to community, but simultaneously release attachment to outcomes like wealth, accolades, or power that society tempts us to measure self-worth by. Expending mental energy endlessly ruminating on what could have gone differently, if only events outside your control shifted lanes, breeds anxiety and turmoil without changing reality. 1 iota. By directing focus solely on consistent, diligent input detached from outcomes, peace follows. This approach grants freedom to throw yourself wholeheartedly into undertakings resonating internally without hesitation. Confidence often yields external success, but even if reward never materializes, The act of passionately applying personal gifts leaves you richer. When we cling desperately to specific outcomes for security and validation, fear-based living hampers reinvention during pivotal times. However, cultivating the courage and wisdom to give yourself fully in each moment furthers growth no matter what arises. Detach from comparing yourself to others or an imaginary timeline. The opportunity for self-discovery and breaking free of past identities lies embedded within each new day if you seek it with presence. Control only your world-class effort, and know that no failure can diminish the illumination of having vibrantly engaged life in this very instant. Detach from the chains of outcomes. Do your best. Then reinvent yourself once more when the next clarion call beckons. Number 4. Treat others' misdeeds with kindness and patience or just ignore them. When someone wrongs us, no matter how severely, the Stoics advise meeting ignorance with wisdom rather than revenge. For as Marcus Aurelius knew, an antidote to them lies within us, to be unperturbed by their actions, to bear with mildness resentments that have no justice. Rather than lashing back defensively or writing the person off as evil, pause first. Consider life's complexity and whether misunderstanding or suffering on their end played a part. Could assuming positive intent and listening without judgment de-escalate tensions faster? If conflict continues, respond with rationality and boundaries rather than escalating negativity. When misdeeds directly violate ethics or law, however, zero tolerance stands mandatory. In such cases, calmly enforce consequences aligned with justice rather than vengeance. Removing the person's power can prove essential. However, even then, inflicting harm back promotes no inner healing. Alternatively, if someone's actions irritate but inflict no lasting damage, question if it merits response at all. Like Seneca suggested, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. Minor slights often reflect the offender's inner turmoil more than our worth. In releasing misdeeds rather than battling all injustice as personal, we gain traction in focusing energy on our own development and model dignity that moves the world by example rather than force. Each of us maintains a choice in how we receive and respond to wrongdoing against us. In the choice lies power. Number 5. Pursue logic, truth, and the common good. The ancient Stoics taught that we should pursue logic, truth, and the common good in all of our decision-making. This means basing our choices and actions on sound reasoning that aligns with facts and promotes the welfare of our community. On an individual level, this lesson encourages us to question our assumptions and emotional impulses. It's easy to make decisions out of anger, fear, or selfish desire. But the Stoics caution us to pause, engage our capacity for reason, and ensure we have the right information before jumping to conclusions. Ask yourself, am I thinking logically or am I mentally clouded by my feelings? Am I focused on truth or being right no matter what? If emotions are ruling, it may be wise to delay an important choice until you can see things more objectively. Additionally, Stoicism reminds us to consider how our actions impact others, not just ourselves. What decision will be of greatest service to my neighbor, my city, or society as a whole? This expands our perspective and helps override our narrow self-interest. It inspires compassion and responsibility. We're all in this world together, so choices that promote justice and the common welfare are aligned with Stoic ideals. Implementing this principle does require effort. It's easier to trust our gut and focus only on our own situation. But the Stoics believed strongly in humanity's capacity for rational thought and ethical concern for others. To reinvent ourselves in alignment with the ancients, we must hone this capacity through constant practice until it becomes second nature. The payoff is improved decisions and relationships. As Marcus Aurelius put it, what brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. Our individual interests are bound up with the greater good. Number 6. Avoid rashness, obstinacy, and feelings of self-importance. Be flexible. Catch yourself when displaying habits like reactive outbursts, interrupting conversations, unwillingness to experiment with new perspectives or demanding others cater to your preferred agenda above ethical considerations. Train delayed self-regulation into those tendencies. Ask often, is my need to dominate this interaction stemming from reason or insecurity? Consider openly soliciting input to balance a viewpoint fixed in cement. Apologize after an outburst once you regulate emotions into logic and grace again. By softening hardened aspects of identity perpetuating conflict, you create a vacuum for revolutionizing how you interface with differing people and ideas. Gradually, this reshapes identity away from obstinate rigidity into responsible, consultative leadership others actually wish to follow. Maintain principles firmly rooted in justice but remain ever a student. Therein resides the key to transformation. As the oak resistant to learn new dance moves cracks while the flexible willow flows on. Seek truth while avoiding ego that closes perception to seeing truth in unfamiliar faces or forcing it down others' throats. Inflexibility, stagnation, and isolation evaporate. Number 7. Speak carefully, deliberately, and without affectation. Before vocalizing, ask inwardly, does this contribution progress collective understanding or solutions? Does it uplift others or primarily serve my ego? If words hold no constructive purpose, discipline your impulse to merely sound intelligent or domineering. Consider that stillness often enlightens more than noise. Additionally, reflect on whether your style of self-expression craves complex vocabulary or turns of phrase primarily for appearances rather than clearer messaging. Do you veil straightforward truths behind pretentious metaphors that alienate audiences and dilute meaning? Or do you speak to reveal, stripping away ornamentation so essence shines through? Carefully weigh intent behind words before tossing them lightly into the wind. And question occasionally if simplicity, brevity, and honesty impart far greater wisdom than elaborate intellectual smokescreens. Revolutionize communication habits by focusing first on deeply understanding other people and perspectives before forming reactive opinions. Ask thoughtful questions more than making declarative statements. Drink in cultures and worldviews far flung from your experience. Soon, organically integrating diverse viewpoints into your identity emerges through exposure rather than insisting on narrow correctness. And your words assume richer dimensions the more you seek truth through listening instead of orating opinions. By progressing communication toward substantive understanding between human beings rather than platforms for personal grandstanding, transformation unfolds. Speak carefully with purpose. Listen deeply with curiosity. Scaffold bridges of meaning spanning similarity and difference. Communication habits must shift first before identity follows. Number 8. Receive wealth, status, and power without vanity. The Stoics saw material success and leadership roles as preferred indifference, meaning nice to have but not vital for fulfillment. Marcus Aurelius knew that indulging ego through bragging about career or lifestyle bred jealousy and alienated others. Instead, give gratitude, then redirect blessings outward. If you attract wealth through ingenuity or inheritance, avoid letting money define identity through the chase of endless accumulation. Create a reasonable comfort, then actively donate access to ethical causes empowering disadvantaged communities. Advocate for economic policies addressing inequality. If leadership lands on your shoulders through promotion or necessity, dismiss prior conditioning to view power solely as domineering authority. Redefine it as profound responsibility to empower subordinates, uplift marginalized groups, and challenge cronyism threatening justice. Develop those you oversee. External distinctions cannot satisfy internal voids regardless. The more humility and wisdom you apply engaging earthly success, however, the more quickly identity evolves through continual self-examination and contribution. Stoic principles allow enjoying blessings most cannot fathom, earned through merit or providence without attachment. But true growth requires utilizing privilege to tear down walls excluding others unfairly, rather than chasing superficial status. If society elevates you repeatedly beyond the masses, question, how completely have past identities rooted in ego and entitlement truly dissolved? Once positioned atop pedestals, your choices either oppress or liberate. Use status and wealth as vehicles for common dignity. for therein transformation awakens. Number 9. Keep an even temper no matter the circumstance. Remaining calm and composed, no matter what life throws your way, is central to reinventing yourself through Stoic philosophy. The Stoics spoke often about maintaining an inner citadel of tranquility that no outside circumstance can disturb. How do we achieve such an imperturbable state? By constantly monitoring and managing our judgments and emotional reactions. The Stoics recognized that external events don't directly cause emotions like anger, fear, or grief. Rather, our inner assessment of the situation gives rise to these feelings. Things we label as bad trigger negative emotions, while those we deem good elicit positive ones. This means we have control over that inner space between an external occurrence and our emotional response. In that space lies tremendous freedom. We can learn to perceive challenging situations less negatively, so they lose their ability to upset us. Neuroscience confirms that conscious reappraisal of our automatic value judgments creates space for new emotional responses. How do we build this skill? By premeditating future difficulties, so when they arrive, we've already rationally processed them. By talking ourselves through upsets as they occur, speaking calmly like a trusted friend. By asking of any misfortune, is this really so awful, or just inconvenient and difficult? Can I learn and grow from this? Reframing our interpretations transforms our inner experience. Over time and with practice, maintaining an even temper across the ups and downs of life becomes our default mode. This prevents burnout, chronic stress, and emotional drama that waste precious energy. We can invest that energy into focused, productive action without being hijacked by mood swings. By keeping your inner state tranquil, you tap into an immense source of resilience to handle adversity while staying engaged with your values. This is the sacred inner citadel, the power to remain unshaken, and it is the key to self-transformation. Number 10. Be self-sufficient, not needing others' approval or help to live well. Seeking validation and help from others can be natural human tendencies. But the Stoics believed we all have deep wells of inner resilience that allow us to approve of and rely on ourselves first and foremost. This lesson encourages us to reinvent ourselves to become more emotionally and physically self-sufficient. The obstacle for many is a perceived helplessness, a feeling that circumstances or other people need to be different for us to be happy and fulfilled. The Stoics would tell us to stop pointing fingers outward and instead ask, what inner resources and strengths can I draw on to take care of myself emotionally, regardless of external factors? Where might I build greater capacity through my own efforts? Practically speaking, this might involve identifying our core values and making choices that align with them, even if others disagree. It can mean taking full responsibility for the direction of our lives rather than waiting for opportunities to be handed to us. It may involve learning basic life skills our parents or partners have always handled for us, so we don't feel helpless without them. The ancients would tell us to know ourselves deeply, then plant our feet firmly on the ground of self-reliance. Ultimately, the Stoic sages sought a radical independence where our happiness and worth would not rise and fall based on getting jobs, awards, wealth, or even love and friendship. These are all preferred externals, but non-essential. True prosperity comes from within. Other people can enrich our lives immensely, but should never determine our self-trust. Becoming self-sufficient makes us impervious to control and rejection, able to operate from our highest self at all times. It allows us to then engage in relationships and endeavors freely, without desperation or neediness. Independence of mind leads to independence of spirit. Number 11. Wake each day ready to live in excellence. Upon waking, we should remind ourselves that this new day may call upon us to respond with courage instead of fear, truth instead of falsehood, compassion instead of anger. We may need to speak up nobly or exhibit calm, steady leadership in a crisis. By consciously envisioning these scenarios, we plant the seeds in our psyche to act our best when destiny summons us. The obstacles come when we're caught mentally asleep, absorbed in habitual anxieties, getting lost in distractions, or resting lazily in comfort. If we don't purposefully ready our minds for the tests of character that come unpredictably, we risk failing those tests. We become like soldiers entering battle without armor and weapons, unable to embody excellence when it matters most. So we must start each day by choosing to show up fully. We visually reconnect with our principles and envision upholding them. We remind ourselves that challenges will arise, but we are eager to meet them. This disciplines our minds to stay ever vigilant for moments when our mettle is tested. If we should falter or fail, we resolve to learn from it and try again tomorrow. By developing this reflective morning practice, we anchor ourselves in who we wish to be, then maintain readiness through the hours so we stay true to it. The world may not transform overnight, but we reinvent ourselves with each new dawn. And compounding these small daily victories of conscience and courage is how, over time, we build a just world. Number 12. Work diligently and vigorously. There is no time for endless rumination, procrastination, or activating later when there are books to write, skills to master, or kindness to spread today. Seneca urged racing as if a thunderclap hurries our steps, not panicked but focused, eager to wring each hour dry. The consistency matters more than occasional heroic efforts, followed by relapses into slackness or distraction. This lesson trains our mindset to eliminate disengaged hanging out and non-essential busyness. Instead, we feel called to vigorous effort interspersed with renewal. Our work aligns with our values versus others' expectations. Another form of urgency comes from embracing our mortality. Imagining life without us today takes on a poignancy. How are we spending this unrepeatable gift wisely? The fruit of this practice is manifold. We measurably grow our talents and make more impact over time. We experience the satisfaction of creating, learning, and contributing at our highest levels. We face regrets less often, knowing even amidst loss and failures that we poured ourselves fully into the endeavor. This fills our days with passion and purpose. Our short ride in this world motivates us to run hard, speak bravely, lead vigorously, love openly, and listen intently before we cross the finish line. By toiling urgently, we paradoxically expand time's content. And when our ephemeral race concludes, we rest, knowing this too was worth the living. If you are listening to this, thank you for staying till the end. If you feel any of these Stoic lessons resonated with you today, feel free to start a Stoic discussion in the comments. I welcome Stoic discussions as they are what the great Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca advised for. As we stated before, if you're interested in Stoicism and self-improvement through the great Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, then our Stoic newsletter, which you can join in the description, is perfect for you. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, and if you want more content like this, subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you for watching, and as always, I hope you find peace and serenity in the Stoic ways.